Thank you so much, Stephen. Well, it's good to be back in Texas. It has been a whirlwind month, and I'm sure that your times are getting just as fast and as busy, and God's redeeming the time and calling us to do as much as possible, because I feel like the time is short and there's so much we need to get done and so many good things that God has for us to do. And, you know, I just know that He's been sweeter and sweeter every day. You know, it's just the dreams He's given us and the things that He's ministering to us. And if we get too cold, let us know. I get hot and then cold and hot. I don't think it's the hot flash thing yet. It's just we were cold a little bit ago, but we did have a wonderful weekend, and I fell in love this weekend. I've been looking for a tall, dark, and handsome for years and years, and I walked into a barn, and there was this guy who's about 2,500 pounds, I think, and he was chestnut, and he had a blaze down his face, and he had these big brown eyes, and they said he's for sale. Yeah. So I found my true love, and where was that? Oklahoma. Yeah. Yeah. His name was Wayne. Yeah, it was great. But we just had a foal. They had a foal this morning. I used to have horses for years, and first time the Lord spoke to me audibly was on a horse, so they're really special to me. And they had this mare was 2 weeks overdue, and she dropped her foal last night, but it hadn't nursed yet, and so they're supposed to nurse within the first minutes or hours as soon as they're up walking, because that's where the colostrum is. So by the time they'd taken me to the airport, I flew home, and he still hadn't nursed. So I was praying. I said, Lord, send your angels just to touch that horse and that baby and work it all out. And so when I called her on the way to the meeting tonight, she said, it was the funniest thing, about an hour ago, and that's when I was praying. Then he finally connected, and he drank his milk, but I was so excited. We had a wonderful weekend, and they have this huge barn there where they have an annual meeting in September, and they bring in Larry Randolph and Bobby Connors and to come and do a beautiful event. I told him about David. I said, if you need someone to do some worship for you, David's off the charts and wonderful. He's a one-man band. And so we just been so busy, and the Glory Explosion was off the charts again this year, and met so many new friends. And Marjorie did everything top-notch and first class, and she always does. And half the dream team's still here tonight. I'm missing a few that were there, but the ones that helped us out and interpreted dreams for people, appreciate y'all for doing that, all y'all. Equipping, releasing, and everybody doing their part, and having everybody come into their giftings and their anointings, and touching, because we're not all the same, we're all different, we need each other. And I don't know, I'm thinking I've got so many messages I want to speak tonight, but I don't want to take a lot of time, because I think tonight we'd like to interpret some dreams, just do a few that we can get done, and see what God's saying, because that's a lot of the things that we did this past weekend, and found some really interesting things through the things that God's speaking to people in dreams. But I saw the Lord, and I was asking him, I said, what time is it with us now? And he says, it's in Hosea 10:12. It's time to seek the Lord. And I really believe we're seeking him now in a new way, because he's doing a new thing. And we've never been this way before. And so there's a renewing of our minds and an opening up of our heart, so that he can begin to move us by the Spirit. And so he's breaking off old habits. 2009, 9 is the number of completion, and things coming into full circle and full cycle. And it's beginning a new one, since 2008 was the new beginning. But it's not, to have a new beginning, you have to come to a completion. And so, Lord, to me, he's breaking off the negative things this year, bringing all the hindrances to a completion and bringing us into a new level, opening new doors. 8 was the number of the doors. So he opened all these new doors for people, and he's calling us to step through. And the thing that he was telling me this weekend, he says a lot of people still have a false vision of who they are and what they're called to. And so I believe part of that bringing things to completion is removing the false visions that the enemy's tried to place on us and saying, this is who you are, this is who you're called to be, and this is all you can be. And if you ever hear anything, this is all you can do and be, that's a false. Because God's called us to be above and beyond and overcome and conquer and increase and multiply. And He doesn't limit us. There are no limitations in the realm of the Spirit. God wants us to be able to move very freely. And it was neat because God's releasing His reign of righteousness on us. And He's clothing us in new garments. And He's breaking off all the grave clothes. And He's putting us on a neat new outfit, new robes. He's clothing us in light. Because as the times get darker, we're going to get brighter. And our light's going to shine. And He's calling us to arise and shine. It tells us that in Isaiah. And every time there's an appointed time, there's a season and an appointed time for everything that's under heaven. And I think this is the time for the new. For the things that you haven't done, but they've been in your heart. The desires that have been in your heart, just like this week of me falling in love with Wayne. I love horses. I've always loved horses. And there he was waiting for me in Oklahoma. So, is God going to do something new for you? Absolutely, yes. He was breaking off the spirit of boredom of people this past weekend when we were in Oklahoma. And I hadn't heard Him say that in a long time because my people have grown bored because they're tired of the same old, same old. And we asked that His fire come down. And the fire came down, and He was delivering people and setting people free. And there was a little lady there, they called her Mother something, I can't remember. She was decked out in a beautiful fiery orange dress and a fiery orange hat. And she came in at the very end. They asked her to pray over the audience. And the Lord said that He was going to release her as a fiery minister again. And she's 80-something years old. But see, God is doing a reviving within us and a renewing within us, and it doesn't matter our age, our race, our color, our gender. God's taking away all the limitations. They were telling me today that there was a filly that won the race, that was just raced, and it's never happened in all these 80 years or something. And this is the year of the woman. This is the year of the womb. And even the horses are becoming champions. The women, and guys, we love you too, but this just happens to be our year. God's doing something special for His women. He's calling them to be champions as well. Men are strong leaders, and we need them. But He's calling the women to come alongside them so that we're equally yoked together so there's a balance. And that's the other thing He was talking to me. He said a lot of us are not balanced. And to be balanced, you'll be able to rotate and circle. Everything comes in cycles, but if we're off balance, our cycle's lopsided. He said part of it is sin can weigh us down and cause us not to cycle properly. But he said the other thing is there's a difference between those that have the Word and those that have the Spirit. Some of us are real Spirit heavy. And so we think everything's spiritual, but we don't ever line it up with the Word. And then there's some of us that are so Word heavy, we're never able to get into the Spirit because we get into our mind and our intellect. And so what God's going to do is I feel like He's bringing in balance in that. Those of us that are too much into the Spirit, He's going to add the Word to us and write it on our heart. Those of us who are too Word heavy, He's going to baptize us in fire and tongues and Spirit so that we're able to begin to flow in that Word's going to trickle down from our head into our hearts so that it becomes rhema, it becomes real, it becomes actual. And God's getting ready to release us to move in a holy boldness. It's time for us to walk in godly boldness and relationship and not in the form of religion that denies the power. And that was our heart's cry this weekend. God, don't let it just be another meeting. And it was neat because they had the first night it was just like a regular service, and then the second night a lot of youth showed up. And I was so excited to see them. And then we had the matriarch, 80-something years old, so we had both generations from every extreme represented, and we need both. I think the lie to the older generation is your time is up and it's over, and you're just to maintain until you go on into glory. But God's calling them and refiring them as the intercessors to break the way for us for the younger generation to be able to do the things that God's called them to do. Joel 3:10 says it's time for the weak to say, I am mighty.